Tuna may all be the same type of fish, but their values can differ by thousands of dollars. Some end up in inexpensive cans on supermarket shelves, while premium-grade tuna becomes a luxury commodity. Today, the industry behind them is worth billions of dollars. But it all began with small boats and generations of experience tracking tuna schools offshore. So, what transformed a fish once caught using simple methods into one of the most valuable marine resources in the world? To find the answer, we have to go back to where it all began when humans first learned to wait for tuna schools as they crossed the oceans. Go discover tuna fishing, a multi-billion-dollar marine industry. Thousands of years before tuna became a multi-billion-dollar industry, people were already waiting for them along the Mediterranean coast. There were no sonar systems, GPS, or massive fishing vessels. Fishermen relied entirely on experience to recognize when tuna schools were migrating close to shore, then used small boats and fixed trap systems to intercept their path. The fish they caught were usually salted or preserved, using simple methods, becoming an important food source for coastal communities. Over generations, tuna seasons provided more than food. They created jobs, supported trade, and helped establish fishing villages whose livelihoods depended almost entirely on the sea. But as the 20th century began, the game started to change. Diesel engines allowed vessels to travel farther, while larger ships enabled fishermen to remain at sea for much longer periods. Refrigeration technology made it possible to preserve fish during extended voyages, while canning factories could process unprecedented quantities of tuna. Tuna, once primarily a food source for coastal communities, began entering international trade networks and appearing on tables thousands of miles away from the fishing grounds. The tuna itself had barely changed, but within just a few generations, humans had completely transformed the way these fish were found, caught, preserved, and sold. And from this point on, the hunt would no longer remain close to shore. It would move deep into the open ocean. As fleets ventured farther offshore, they faced one major challenge. Tuna almost never stays in one place. Their streamlined bodies, powerful muscles, and crescent-shaped tails allow some species to swim at speeds exceeding 50 miles per hour and travel thousands of miles each year. Tuna also need to keep swimming almost continuously to maintain water flow across their gills. Bluefin tuna in particular can retain heat in certain parts of their bodies, allowing them to hunt efficiently in colder waters. The tuna industry includes several commercially important species such as skipjack, yellowfin, big-eye albacore, and bluefin. In 2022, the combined production of the major tuna groups reached approximately 5.2 million metric tons. Each species moves according to water temperature, ocean currents, and food availability. That means the biggest challenge is not simply catching tuna, it is finding a school that can travel thousands of miles and disappear into the open ocean within a matter of hours. Finding a tuna school in the middle of the ocean is like chasing a constantly moving target. If the school changes direction by just a few dozen miles, a vessel can spend hours searching for it again while fuel continues to burn and weather conditions keep changing. Modern fleets therefore rely on multiple layers of data at once. GPS tracks the vessel's position, sonar detects fish beneath the surface, while satellite data helps identify sea surface temperatures, ocean currents, and areas where food sources are likely to concentrate. Above the water, seabirds diving for smaller fish can also become an important clue that tuna may be nearby. But technology only provides clues. The final decision still depends heavily on the captain's experience. Offshore, they are not simply searching for tuna. They are looking for the conditions that can predict where the school will appear next. When a tuna school is finally located in the middle of the ocean, the search ends, but another crucial decision immediately begins. How should the fish be caught? Because in the tuna industry, there is no single method that works for every situation. Depending on the species, size, and target market, the same ocean can witness three completely different types of fishing operations.
Nå går han på! Nå går han på!
With tuna, no single fishing method works for every school. Each technique is designed for different patterns of movement depths and fish sizes. Purse seine is commonly used for large schools of skipjack and yellowfin tuna swimming near the surface. Once a school is detected, the vessel deploys a massive net around the entire area. The bottom of the net is then drawn closed like the mouth of a purse, trapping the entire school inside. A single successful set can produce an enormous catch-making purse, signing one of the most important methods in industrial tuna fishing. Longline fishing operates in a completely different way. A main fishing line stretching for dozens of miles is deployed into the ocean, carrying hundreds or even thousands of hooks at different depths. This method often targets larger fish such as big-eye yellowfin or bluefin tuna. There is no attempt to surround an entire school. Instead, the vessel waits for individual fish to take the bait before hauling the line back aboard. Finally, there is pole and line fishing. This method is simpler, but much more labor-intensive. Fish are brought aboard one at a time using poles and lines. When a highly active school is encountered, the crew can catch fish continuously at remarkable speed. The advantage is greater selectivity, which can help reduce the number of non-target species accidentally caught. One method captures an entire school. Another deploys fishing lines stretching dozens of miles, while the third catches fish one by one. They are all tuna fishing, but the method used can make a huge difference in catch volume, operating costs, and product quality once the fish leave the ocean. When tuna come off the vessel, their journey quickly divides into two completely different paths. For canned tuna, the main priorities are speed and volume. At a processing plant capable of handling around 20 metric tons of raw material during an 8-hour shift, frozen tuna is inspected, sorted, and then thawed in water at approximately 50-59 degrees before being cleaned and cooked. After cooling, workers remove the skin, bones, and dark meat, keeping only the loin portions that meet the required standards. Recovery rates are typically around 50-55%, meaning nearly half of the original weight does not become part of the final product. From approximately 20 metric tons of raw tuna, a production line can produce around 20,000 half-pound cans during a single shift. The meat is then packed into cans combined with brine or oil, sealed, and heat processed to achieve commercial sterility before shipment. But with premium tuna, speed is no longer the top priority. Each fish is carefully evaluated for meat color, firmness, fat content, and freshness. The highest quality portions are cut into loins, steaks, or saka blocks, then deep frozen in some cases down to approximately 60-degree temperature to 76-degree temperature to preserve the color and texture required for sushi or sashimi. This difference shows that tuna is not simply one type of raw material. After leaving the ocean, the same fish can enter two completely different systems, one prioritizing scale and mass supply, while the other focuses on quality and value in every portion. And it is inside the processing facility that the final value of the tuna is truly determined. After thousands of years of learning how to catch tuna more efficiently, the industry's greatest challenge is no longer catching more fish. It is making sure those tuna schools continue crossing the oceans in the seasons to come. If you want to continue exploring the stories behind some of the world's most extraordinary industries, subscribe to Go Discover and join us on the next journey. Tuna conquer the oceans through long offshore journeys. But salmon amaze us with their thousands of miles journey home, marking the beginning of an extraordinary fishing season. The race begins before humans even have a chance to see it. Beneath the surface, millions of silver-bodied salmon press together, transforming a seemingly peaceful river into a massive living current moving upstream. Sonar is the first thing to reveal the true scale. The screen becomes almost completely filled with signals as countless bright dots merge into dense formations moving beneath the surface. For only a few weeks each year, tens of millions of salmon return to the rivers where they were born, creating a massive migration that can generate hundreds of millions of dollars in commercial value. Ports operate through the night processing plants run at full capacity, and a few hours can determine the success or failure of an entire season. But when salmon returns reach record levels, one question emerges: who benefits most from this migration, and where does the real cost lie? Before the market placed hundreds of millions of dollars in value on salmon, nature had already given them something far more important. Every salmon run is like a massive transport system for nutrients, connecting the ocean rivers, forests, and wildlife through a single journey. After spawning, the salmon that die become a source of nutrients for the ecosystem. Nutrients from the ocean return to the land, nourishing vegetation along the rivers and continuing through a food chain that has existed for thousands of years. But for humans, the connection runs even deeper. Many indigenous communities consider salmon an essential part of their food ceremonies and cultural memory, while numerous river towns depend on salmon seasons to sustain their livelihoods. That is why a massive salmon run is more than millions of fish returning home. It is a tremendous movement of energy carrying nutrients from the Pacific Ocean through rivers and deep into the land. It is no surprise that salmon are often described as the lifeblood of the Pacific Northwest. If that migration weakens, the impact does not stop with the fishing industry. It can spread through food webs, communities, and entire ecosystems. And sometimes that migration explodes beyond every prediction. That is when we enter the top 5 record-breaking salmon seasons, the extraordinary runs that generated hundreds of millions of dollars throughout American history. Top 5. Awakening River. No one sees a record when it begins. From above, the Pacific Northwest remains peaceful, with endless forests, mountain ranges, and massive rivers winding through the wilderness as they have for centuries. But beneath the surface, something unusual is happening. The familiar river begins receiving an extraordinary number of fish, growing denser and denser until the normal rhythm of the entire region is completely disrupted. Just weeks later, the number of returning salmon has far exceeded forecasts built from years of data. Statistical reports have to be updated constantly as new figures repeatedly surpass milestones once considered the upper limit. And the record immediately creates pressure. Boats line up at the docks, fish are unloaded continuously, while processing plants and transportation systems operate at full capacity. Prices fluctuate, and the supply chain strains under the enormous volume of fish. Scientists begin searching for the reasons behind the phenomenon. An unusually warm, winter-abundant food supplied by ocean currents and favorable biological conditions appear to have come together at exactly the right time. For fishermen, those explanations come later. In front of them are sleepless nights beneath boat lights, one catch after another, and countless decisions that must be made quickly in rough waters. But a massive salmon season also creates a paradox. When millions of salmon arrive faster than humans can process them, the question is no longer how many can be caught, but how quickly they can be handled. Top 4. The race against time. The bigger the record, the greater the pressure. When salmon reach their highest density, the battle is no longer about finding them, but whether humans can respond quickly enough before the opportunity disappears. Because the salmon season waits for no one. Just weeks after returning, salmon complete their spawning journey and die, and with them the economic opportunity of the season also disappears. That volatility immediately reaches the market. An overwhelming influx of fish can cause prices to collapse within hours, while a single storm or sudden decline in the run can send prices climbing again. Every catch therefore becomes a difficult calculation. Fishing aggressively can take advantage of a record season, but slowing down allows more salmon to continue upstream spawn and produce the next generation.
But a lot of effort creating these fish stocks. And we're working for the hatchery. We get 10 cents and they get the rest of the 50 cents that we actually are getting now. And thank you, Lord, that they are.
This is not simply a choice between fishing or not fishing. Today's profits must be weighed against tomorrow's ability to recover, because what is removed from the river this season can affect many seasons to come. And from this point, the story goes far beyond a single boat or a single catch. Behind every salmon run is an entire state operating around it, where the economy, communities, and natural environment all depend on each wave of returning fish. Look at Alaska from a different perspective, not through its rivers, but through what happens when salmon arrive. Thousands of boats leave the ports, tens of thousands of workers begin their shifts, and coastal towns immediately switch to the rhythm of the salmon season. Behind the spectacle is a massive management system. Quotas are adjusted, biological data is updated continuously, and individual salmon runs are monitored almost hour by hour, because exceeding sustainable limits can turn a winning season into long-term losses. Then something few people expected happens. More salmon return than predicted, catches continue to rise, and money rapidly flows through fishing ports, processing plants and coastal communities, creating the feeling of a rare bumper season. But the more fish appear, the greater the pressure on the system. Boats, ports, processing plants, and even management calculations approach their limits where a single wrong decision can create consequences lasting for many seasons. That is why the most important question is not how much Alaska can harvest, but how much it should leave behind. A massive salmon season means little today if future generations of salmon can no longer return. And Alaska is not where the ultimate limit was witnessed. On another American river, the number of returning salmon would exceed expectations, even further creating a record powerful enough to rewrite the history of an entire salmon season. The Columbia River was once measured by limits that seemed clearly defined. But that salmon season erased those boundaries as returning numbers rose beyond the scientific models built from decades of data. The numbers no longer increased week by week, they changed from day to day. After only a few tidal cycles, real-world data had already exceeded expectations, forcing managers to continually adjust their plans to match the speed of the migration. And the problem quickly moved from the ocean onto land. Fish continued arriving at the docks, processing plants ran at full capacity, cold storage facilities approached their limits, and the supply chain faced the risk of becoming overwhelmed. This time the challenge was not finding enough fish, but processing the fish fast enough. But nature does not maintain a peak forever. In the years that followed, returning salmon numbers declined. Many runs became thinner, and the record season, once viewed as a victory, began to take on a completely different meaning. Because a large number does not necessarily mean a healthy ecosystem. The Columbia River showed that a record can also be a signal of instability. And in the following salmon seasons, scale would no longer be measured only by the number of fish, but by unprecedented economic value. The most valuable salmon season ever recorded in the United States is not remembered for loud celebrations. Instead, it left behind a heavier feeling as hundreds of millions of dollars flowed through a single season and forced the entire industry to reconsider its own limits. It was a moment when several rare conditions came together. Salmon returned in numbers beyond the memory of many generations, while monitoring, fishing, and processing systems operated close to maximum capacity. Amid such extraordinary abundance, humans had to walk a very narrow line between taking advantage of the opportunity and protecting the future, because every rushed decision could create consequences that would not become visible immediately. Fishermen simply watched as the salmon continued passing their boats, understanding that what was moving before them was not merely today's profit, but the source of life for future seasons. And the greatest paradox appeared precisely at what seemed like the perfect moment. The more generous the river became, the more cautious humans had to be, because today's abundance could easily become tomorrow's shortage. When the bumper season faded from the river, the first warning signs did not appear as an obvious disaster. They appeared in the data as salmon numbers began to fluctuate, and the charts could no longer maintain the stable pattern seen before. Nature now had to find its balance again after a season of dramatic change. At the same time, pressure shifted toward managers, river communities, and fishermen should they continue taking advantage of the resource or reduce fishing and give the salmon time to recover. There is no absolute answer. A record season can represent prosperity, but it can also conceal signs of instability, showing that humans do not truly control nature. They are still forced to adapt to every change it brings. So the story does not end with praise or pessimism. Instead, it leaves us with a moment of silence to consider whether the biggest numbers truly represent success or whether they can sometimes be a warning. Extraordinary salmon seasons eventually become part of history, but the lesson remains. In nature, a massive harvest does not necessarily represent victory, because behind every bumper season is a limit that humans cannot continue to exceed forever. Among the coral reefs of the Pacific, the pufferfish looks like nothing more than a small, harmless creature. But when danger appears, its soft body suddenly swells, revealing the extraordinary nature of fugu, a fish famous for its strange appearance and deadly toxicity. This journey will take us from the hidden toxin inside the pufferfish and fugu's unique role in Japan to high-tech farms, the risky harvesting process, and the kitchen, where every movement of a chef's knife can determine the safety of the diner. But behind this dish lies an industry worth billions, along with ongoing debates over safety, sustainability, and ethics. Fugu is therefore a rare paradox, where life stands beside death, fear meets curiosity, and nature collides with human ambition. After following salmon on a journey spanning thousands of miles, we now turn to a completely different creature. Fugu pufferfish has little value because of its abundance, but because of something that makes it a luxury delicacy, the deadly toxin hidden inside its body. The pufferfish seems to have been designed by nature as a paradox. Under normal conditions, it is small and almost harmless, but within seconds, it can expand its body to nearly 3 times its normal size, raising sharp spines as a defensive shield that evolved over millions of years. More than 120 species of pufferfish are found around the world, particularly in waters near Japan and China. But what makes them dangerous lies inside tetrodotoxin, an extremely powerful neurotoxin often described as roughly 1/200 times more potent than cyanide. Even tiny amounts can be fatal, and there is currently no specific antidote. More than 400 years ago, during the Edo period, eating fugu became a distinctive experience in Japan. Among certain social classes, this dangerous fish became associated with status boldness and the thrill of approaching a potentially deadly boundary. That very danger led fugu to become subject to strict controls on multiple occasions. Poisoning incidents prompted authorities to impose bans, turning a highly desired delicacy into one of the most controversial choices on the dining table. Yet, the more dangerous fugu seemed, the more it appeared to stimulate human curiosity. For many Japanese diners, eating it means approaching the boundary between safety and danger, a psychological experience that very few foods can create. Over time, increasingly refined preparation techniques helped fugu move beyond its image as a frightening food. It became a culinary symbol associated with sophistication, exclusivity, and the thrill of experiencing something truly different. Today, every serving of fugu is supported by an extensive system of strict controls. From farm to restaurant, modern technology is combined with traditional expertise to bring this dangerous creature from the ocean to the dining table as safely as possible. Fugu today no longer depends entirely on wild catches from the sea. To meet growing demand from restaurants, a significant portion of the supply has shifted to modern controlled farming operations. From Japan to China and South Korea, specialized facilities operate almost like biological laboratories, where every stage of the pufferfish's development is monitored inside controlled farming systems. Inside large tanks, seawater is continuously filtered and recirculated to maintain stable conditions. The diet is also carefully controlled to support healthy growth while limiting exposure to organisms associated with the accumulation of tetrodotoxin. Almost nothing is left to chance. Sensors and cameras continuously monitor the environment and the fish, because abnormal changes can cause stress, leading the pufferfish to inflate and potentially injure themselves. And this is a long-term investment. A commercially raised pufferfish can require around 2 to 3 years to reach the desired size, creating significant costs for high-protein feed water filtration systems and environmental control. That combination of time, technology, and investment helps explain Fugu's high price. Seen from above, the farm resembles a massive network of tanks, where every flow of water and every group of fish is managed with remarkable precision. But leaving the tanks is only the beginning of the final stage. Before Fugu reaches the dining table, the fish must undergo a careful harvesting and handling process, where commercial value must always go hand in hand with safety. Once the pufferfish reaches commercial size, its years inside the farming tanks come to an end. But this is also when an even more sensitive stage begins removing this unusual fish from its controlled environment while preserving its quality. Off the coast of Japan, wild fugu is still harvested by some fishermen using nets. On crowded, constantly moving decks, handling each fish requires experience and extreme caution. When threatened, a pufferfish can swallow water and inflate itself into a large ball. The real danger lies in the tetrodotoxin concentrated in certain organs, making the handling process subject to strict safety procedures. In modern farms, uncertainty is reduced as much as possible. Fish are gathered in tanks before being transferred using soft nets or specialized equipment, minimizing impact and stress throughout harvesting. The fish are then placed into water-filled containers with sufficient oxygen and suitable conditions for live transport. Freshness is especially important because only fish that meet the required standards will continue to restaurants or processing facilities. During transportation, the tanks inside specialized vehicles become miniature oceans. Hundreds of fugu move silently inside, carrying a strange contrast between their delicate appearance and their hidden toxicity. But this is not simply the transportation of a high-value product. The entire system must solve two problems at once, protecting workers while delivering each fish to its destination in the best possible condition. This is also the point where fugu's role changes completely. From a creature raised on a farm or caught at sea, it officially enters the processing chain to become one of the world's most distinctive luxury foods. And at the next stage, technology must give way to human skill. Fugu is placed in the hands of professional chefs, where every precise movement of the knife can determine both the quality of the dish and the safety of the diner. From the sea to the market, the value of the pufferfish is still not complete. Only after entering the kitchen is fugu entrusted to people capable of transforming a toxin-bearing creature into a luxury delicacy professional chefs. In Japan, becoming qualified to prepare fugu can require years of training and rigorous examinations depending on local regulations. This is a profession where knowledge of food safety is just as important as knife skill. Trainees must understand the anatomy of each pufferfish species and identify the organs most likely to contain high levels of tetrodotoxin, particularly the liver and ovaries. A mistake during preparation can have serious consequences. That is why every movement must follow strict procedures. Dangerous organs are separated and handled safely to prevent contamination of the edible flesh. Only after meeting the required professional standards can a chef legally serve fugu. When the doors of a high-end fugu restaurant in Tokyo close, the outside world seems to disappear. Beneath the warm, golden lights, diners are not simply waiting for an expensive meal, they are entering a distinctive culinary ritual. At the center is a plate of fugu sashimi arranged in the shape of a chrysanthemum, a symbol carrying multiple layers of meaning in Japanese culture. The paper-thin slices are almost translucent, spreading across the plate like delicate petals carved from crystal. But beneath that beauty lies a dangerous history. Diners know that the fish creating those sashimi slices could contain deadly toxins if handled incorrectly. That awareness creates a unique feeling somewhere between curiosity, suspense, and trust. Fugu goes far beyond sashimi. It can appear in steaming fugu nabe, crispy karaage with tender meat inside, or shirako, the reproductive organ of the male fish, a distinctive delicacy sought out by knowledgeable diners. Each dish depends on precise preparation to preserve flavor while meeting safety standards. At high-end fugu restaurants, a complete dining experience can cost each guest anywhere from $200 to $500. From farms and fish markets to specialized restaurants, fugu has created a high-value industry in Japan. Every year, large quantities of fish move through a tightly controlled supply chain before eventually reaching the dining table. From a strange creature in the ocean to slices of fish worth hundreds of dollars, fugu reflects one of the rare paradoxes of cuisine. Something that once made humans fearful has been transformed into a symbol of precision and sophistication. Humans have learned to control danger through knowledge and turn it into a unique culinary experience. Yet behind every almost transparent slice of sashimi remains one question. How close should we really come to that boundary? Imagine a flow not made of water, but of oysters. Millions of shells move through a processing plant, while at the end of the line, enormous containers are continuously filled with valuable cargo. In just 24 hours, nearly 2 million oysters can pass through this system, creating a total volume of product worth more than 5 million. The scale is almost impossible to comprehend. If 2 million oysters were placed end to end, they could form a line more than a mile long. And if you ate 10 oysters every day, it would take you more than 500 years to finish them all. But the real challenge isn't the numbers, it's controlling a massive flow of living products at high-speed cleaning, sorting, and packaging them precisely while minimizing damage before they leave the facility. From the dangerous fugu, our journey now continues to a completely different type of seafood. There is no deadly toxin, but these 2 million oysters worth $5 million must pass through an enormous processing system before reaching consumers. Before millions of oysters appear on a refrigerated production line, their story begins at coastal hatcheries, where the natural cycle of the ocean is brought into a tightly controlled production system. Here, reproduction is not left entirely to nature. Mature oysters that meet the required standards are selected, while water conditions such as temperature and salinity are adjusted to trigger spawning at the right time. From eggs and sperm, millions of microscopic larvae are produced and transferred into strictly controlled tanks. The water must remain clean, well oxygenated, and stable, because even a small change in temperature or water quality can destroy an entire generation. Once they are capable of attaching to a surface, young oysters leave the nursery system and move into the ocean. They are placed on substrates, bags, racks, or suspended cages, allowing them to grow while reducing threats from crabs, starfish, and other predators. From above, rows of oyster farms stretching for miles form a massive geometric network across the surface of the sea. At this point, the boundary between a natural marine environment and an outdoor production system almost disappears. In waters with suitable currents, oysters continuously filter natural food from the sea and grow for roughly 18 to 24 months. Tens of thousands of oysters in each farming area combine into the enormous scale required to supply millions of animals. But throughout those nearly 2 years, farmers must constantly read the signals of the ocean. Salinity, temperature, harmful algae pollution, and growth rates are monitored, while cages and growing structures are regularly rotated and cleaned to maintain quality. When harvest time arrives, the pace suddenly changes. Specialized boats enter the farming area, lifting oysters from the water using equipment suited to each production method, while the first batches are inspected and sorted directly on board. This is also the moment when nearly 2 years of investment can be put at risk within minutes. Heavy impacts, sudden temperature changes, or harvesting at the wrong time can reduce quality before the oysters even reach the processing plant. Just a few hours later, oysters that took up to 24 months to mature have left the marine environment. A journey lasting years has suddenly become a race measured in hours, where freshness and quality directly determine value. From here, oysters enter a completely different world. They are no longer measured by growth rate, but by size, weight, quality, and market price, the standards that determine the value of the entire production chain. The moment an oyster is pulled from the sea, an invisible clock begins counting down. They are still alive, and from this point forward, the value of each one depends on how long humans can keep it alive. An oyster at the source may be worth only a few dollars, but on a high-end dining table, its value can increase several times. The added value comes from the entire preservation process that keeps it fresh and alive until the end of the supply chain. This is what makes oysters different from many other types of seafood. They are often distributed and served alive, meaning temperature, bacteria, and storage conditions become critical factors. Even a small deviation can cause an entire high-value shipment to be rejected. Behind every oyster is therefore an almost invisible control system. Safety, testing, traceability, and compliance with strict food regulations. All of this adds cost, but it also directly protects the value of the product. And the real challenge appears when the scale is multiplied into the millions. What happens when 2 million living organisms enter a processing plant at once, while every minute of delay can affect their quality and value? Before sunrise, the plant is already entering peak operating hours. Refrigerated trucks arrive one after another, bringing tens of tons of live oysters from farming areas into the system, beginning a race to process nearly 2 million oysters every day. The moment the truck doors open, time becomes the enemy. Every shipment is immediately checked for temperature and viability. From how tightly the shells are closed to how the oysters react, each sign helps determine whether they are fit to move further down the line. At this enormous scale, a single rejected container can mean losses of hundreds of thousands of dollars. That is why the flow of oysters must remain almost continuous, because one bottleneck can affect the entire operation behind it. Approved batches immediately enter the purification stage. Oysters are poured onto washing conveyors, where pressurized water removes mud, sand, and organisms attached to the shells, while the water system is continuously filtered, treated, and recirculated. Thousands of oysters pass through every minute, making the production line look like a river made of shells. Machines provide the speed, while experienced workers control quality, quickly identifying and removing oysters that fail to meet the required standards. Behind this operation is another layer of protection that is much harder to see. Systems continuously monitor microbial conditions and water quality. If any critical parameter exceeds the permitted limit, processing may have to stop. But clean isn't enough. Once oysters enter the sorting area, each one begins to be priced according to its physical characteristics. Size, weight, and shell shape determine which market category it will enter. Sometimes just a few millimeters can make a significant difference. Oysters with sizes and shapes preferred by premium markets are separated, while the rest move into other categories from the same source, but potentially with dramatically different values. Although machines dominate the production line, people still play a critical role. To process nearly 2 million oysters, hundreds of workers coordinate across different stations, continuously performing seemingly simple inspections that require intense concentration. During a single shift, each worker may inspect thousands of oysters, looking, rotating, touching, and making a decision within just a few seconds. A mistake here can affect the quality of an entire shipment once it reaches the market. That is why speed must always be balanced with control. Too slow and millions of oysters will pile up. Too fast and the products can be damaged. Maintaining that balance keeps the million-dollar production line operating within safe limits. After sorting, the race moves into the cold chain. Oysters are packed into containers under controlled temperatures and quickly transferred to refrigerated transportation. Just a few hours later, thousands of packages begin their journey toward markets and restaurants around the world. When the final refrigerated truck leaves the plant, millions of dollars in seafood have been processed within just a few hours. But behind that speed are years of technology experience and logistics designed to keep every oyster in good condition until it reaches its final destination. Once they leave, the cold chain oysters enter a completely different world high-end dining tables. Some are served raw on ice, preserving the salty taste of the ocean. Others are topped with garlic butter and grilled, releasing a rich aroma. Still others are fried until golden, creating a crisp exterior around soft, juicy meat. But what makes oysters appealing isn't only how they are prepared. It's the sensation of tasting the ocean almost instantly, because just days or even hours earlier, the oyster on your plate was still filtering seawater in the ocean. That short distance from ocean to table is exactly what the market is willing to pay for, because behind every oyster is not just flavor, but the final result of a massive system powered by technology, discipline, and almost absolute precision. But the faster the system operates, the less room there is for mistakes. A power failure can bring the conveyor belts to a halt while simultaneously putting the refrigeration system, the most important line of defense, at risk. A single abnormal microbial reading can be enough to isolate or destroy an entire shipment. Even more dangerously, if the cold chain is broken for even a short period, oysters that look completely normal may no longer meet safety standards. And when the scale is measured in millions of oysters, a small mistake immediately becomes a massive loss. Just one failed day can wipe out hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, along with contracts and trust built over years. That is why behind the main production line is another line of defense emergency generators, cross-checking systems, and rapid response procedures, where a critical decision sometimes has to be made within just a few minutes. But the biggest challenge may still lie ahead. Warming oceans, increasing pollution, and increasingly strict safety standards are changing the game. The oyster industry can no longer simply react to crises. It must anticipate vulnerabilities and prepare before the worst day arrives. So the next time you open an oyster and taste the saltiness of the sea, remember that behind it are years of cultivation, millions of individual selections, and a massive system that must operate with near-perfect precision just to bring one small creature from the ocean to the plate in front of you. If you want to keep stepping into the hidden worlds behind familiar foods and discover the massive production lines operating quietly every day, subscribe to the channel. Because behind the next meal that seems ordinary, there may be an incredible journey waiting to be revealed. A fortune, but a single batch of geoduck can generate more than $500,000 in value. Behind that figure is the geoduck, a giant clam buried deep beneath the cold coastal sands of the United States, where it is regarded as living gold beneath the ocean. What makes it valuable is not just its rarity or delicate sweetness, but also the race against time to keep it alive during a journey spanning half the globe. So what makes a clam worth a fortune to Asia's luxury food market? What secret beneath its rough shell has transformed it into a symbol of extravagance? And even more incredibly, how do suppliers transport these fragile creatures across the Pacific while keeping them as fresh and alive as the moment they were pulled from the sea floor? From millions of oysters being cleaned and packaged in massive factories, our journey now moves to a completely different shellfish. Geoduck is not only highly valuable, it also requires a specialized transportation chain to preserve its quality across the Pacific. Imagine a creature spending nearly a century hidden beneath cold sand, carrying a strange elephant-like siphon, and yet once harvested, each individual can be worth hundreds of dollars. That is the geoduck, a prized delicacy sought after by high-end food markets for its sweet, crisp meat. A single serving of geoduck sashimi can sell for as much as $400. Geoduck are concentrated in the cold waters along the western coasts of the United States and Canada. They typically require 5 to 7 years to reach commercial size, making their supply impossible to increase quickly. But that value comes with one condition: they must remain alive after harvest, because once they die, their commercial value can collapse almost immediately. That is why for shipments worth up to $500,000, geoduck are like living gold beneath the sand, a treasure whose value depends on every minute they remain alive. When the tide retreats from the cold mudflats each morning, a very different kind of hunt begins. Harvesters are not searching for precious metals. They are looking for geoduck creatures worth hundreds of dollars each, buried deep beneath the sand. But this treasure is not easy to extract. Geoduck can lie around 2 to 3 feet beneath the seafloor, firmly anchored below the surface. A shovel or digging tool used too aggressively can damage the soft body and dramatically reduce its commercial value. Here, strength has to give way to precision. Instead of digging directly, harvesters use high-pressure water jets to loosen the surrounding sand. Within minutes, the seafloor becomes soft and unstable, and the geoduck's distinctive siphon gradually emerges through the cold water. This is a moment when rushing is not an option. Each geoduck must be carefully pulled out by hand, ensuring that the shell remains intact and the valuable flesh is not torn. A single harvesting session may bring up only a few dozen geoduck, but at $150 to $300 per animal, the reward can be substantial if the weather cooperates and the harvester can endure water temperatures of around 46 degree. Stay.
Una vergüenza, tío. Una vergüenza total eres. ¡Mete la mano! ¡Ahí! Déjalo para tus fans de mercado. Venga tú. Limpio.
For John, who has 12 years of experience, that price comes at the cost of endurance hours spent in freezing water, numb hands and feet sometimes, bringing up only 20 geoduck. Yet every animal pulled from the seafloor carries significant value. The moment they leave the ocean floor, the geoduck enter a strict selection process. They are rinsed with cold seawater, brought ashore for inspection, and graded. Only the largest, healthiest, and most intact specimens are selected for export markets. Then comes an even stricter layer of control. Traceability, harvest time, and temperature all have to be recorded. A single failure anywhere in the chain can cause a shipment worth $500,000 to be rejected. But removing geoduck from the sand only wins half the battle. From this moment onward, time becomes the enemy because suppliers may have only around 36 hours to move this living gold across the Pacific before the animals begin to die. The moment geoduck leave the ocean is also the moment their value begins to come under attack from time. They may survive only around 36 hours out of water, meaning every minute of delay can turn a $500,000 shipment into a massive loss, and these living treasures are not always fully insured. To keep geoduck alive, transporters must recreate part of their cold marine environment temperatures around 32-36 degree high humidity and a stable supply of oxygen. Each animal is carefully placed inside insulated containers, surrounded by cooling gel and seaweed, while sensors continuously monitor the conditions inside. Some advanced systems even incorporate oxygen pumps and GPS tracking to monitor the shipment in real time, because even a single dead geoduck during transit could threaten the quality of the entire shipment. That means from the moment the containers are packed, transported to the airport, and loaded onto the aircraft, the entire supply chain has to move like a machine that cannot afford to stop. And once the final container is sealed and loaded onto a refrigerated truck, the real countdown begins. Ahead lies less than 36 hours to deliver the geoduck to luxury dining tables in Shanghai, a journey across the Pacific where every minute carries a price. A traffic jam, technical failure, or prolonged customs clearance can be enough to derail the entire plan. That is why specialized vehicles maintain controlled conditions while sensors continuously monitor the environment. For David, who has overseen more than 300 shipments, the pressure comes from the clock. Experience has taught him that even a delay of a few hours can turn an entire shipment into a loss. Throughout the nearly 2-day journey, suppliers, drivers, and chefs all depend on the same condition: the geoduck must remain alive. And keeping them that way requires every link in the chain to operate almost perfectly. This is why transporting geoduck is not simply about moving seafood. It is a race between logistics and biology, where every minute determines whether $500,000 reaches the dining table or disappears. After nearly 30 hours of racing against time, the $500,000 geoduck shipment finally completes its long journey and arrives at an upscale restaurant in the heart of Shanghai. The kitchen doors close and the decisive moment begins. The head chef opens each container. The siphons are still moving and the bodies still react to the cold water. The geoduck are alive, which means the $500,000 shipment has retained its value. The finest specimens are immediately selected. Beneath a precise knife, the geoduck are transformed into translucent sashimi slices arranged over chilled ice. Each serving can be worth $200 to $400 a price, reserved for a luxury dining experience. For businessman Liu, the attraction comes down to 3 things: sweetness, freshness, and rarity. Bringing geoduck to the table is not simply about serving food, it is also a statement of status. But that price also represents the entire journey behind it. Harvesters working in freezing water, technicians carefully preserving each animal, and logistics teams transporting the valuable cargo nearly 500-600 miles without allowing the supply chain to fail. From the sea floor of the United States to luxury dining tables across Asia, every geoduck carries the story of an extraordinary supply chain. And when one shipment ends, another race is already preparing to begin. Because the geoduck business is essentially a wager on life. If just 5% of a shipment dies, tens of thousands of dollars can disappear. If the entire shipment fails, $500,000 can vanish almost instantly. And temperature is not the only risk. Import policies can change, markets constantly fluctuate, and competition continues to grow. But as long as the profit margins remain attractive, few businesses are willing to leave the race. Strong demand from wealthy Asian consumers means a successful geoduck shipment can potentially generate profits of 2 or even 3 times the original investment. That is why companies continue investing in preservation systems, dedicated transportation networks, and rapid response teams. For traders in the industry, every shipment is like a gamble against the clock. Every step must happen at the right moment, and every link must work precisely, because when the entire system operates perfectly, the reward can be enormous. In the geoduck industry, the greatest advantage does not lie beneath the seafloor. It lies in the ability to control every minute before time takes away the value. From the cold sand where geoduck hide to luxurious dining tables in the heart of the city, what diners are tasting is more than seafood. It is the result of a journey calculated down to the minute. If this journey made you curious, subscribe to the channel and continue exploring strange, valuable, and challenging industries around the world, where behind every luxury product lies an entire hidden world few people ever get to see. Behind the hustle and bustle of the global market, the squid industry faces a myriad of risks, from ships that can be lost in storms to shipments that are canceled because of a few degrees of cold storage. The bigger challenge comes from nature itself. Climate change is altering ocean currents and temperatures, causing squid populations to move erratically. A once stable industry is now facing unprecedented uncertainty.
Ahí.
In the world of squid, profits and risks go hand in hand. Half depends on technology and skill. The other half depends on the whims of nature and the market. If you want to continue to accompany interesting journeys like this, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell. With Go Discover, each trip will open up a new perspective on the world around us.